Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Video. So this is a new segment that we have done a couple of times on the channel, where I take a character, I let my patrons vote on every single character that we are going to do, and I decide to rank every single one of their duels. I've done this for Aki, I've done this for Panther J, and today we are doing it for the rival of Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS, Revolver, which I am really excited about. So I have all of the duels that I'm going to rank listed and shown right here. There was a total of 11 duels that Revolver took place in. I'm not counting the Bit and Boot duels, and I'm not counting the duel against Clone I, because there was really nothing from those duels, and I don't even know if I should have counted Revolver Soulburner round 1, but I'm going to count it since we did kind of see the whole thing play out. So without further ado, let's get into it. Every single Revolver duel ranked. I hope you guys enjoy. Number 11, Revolver vs. Soulburner, Round 1, Episode 84. I think this is probably a duel that is going to be on the bottom of every single person's list. The first time that Revolver and Soulburner were set to square off was in Episode 84, and I remember going into this episode, so many of us were excited to see two of the heaviest hitters in the show, probably the two strongest characters and duelists in the show outside of Playmaker, square off against each other. But unfortunately, we didn't really get to see anything that was worthwhile. Revolver decided not to duel so that Soulburner could let out all of his frustration and emotions of the lost incident on Revolver, but that just made Soulburner more frustrated and more insulted and angry. Soulburner decided not to take the direct attack that Revolver was giving him, the free win that Revolver was giving him. Soulburner screamed into the sky, and the duel came to a no result. Definitely an underwhelming matchup, but these two definitely made up for it later on in the show. The first matchup between Revolver and Soulburner kicks off this list in number 11. Cracking the top 10 is Revolver vs. Blood Shepherd in episode 78. So this was one of Revolver's only true one-episode duels, the other being the one we just went over, and this is a duel that is honestly very forgettable to me. I rewatched every single duel on this list over the last week so that I could make a proper ranking and list for this video, and Revolver vs. Blood Shepherd, there's really not anything special that happens. Revolver takes his first turn, Blood Shepherd tries to defeat him, and then Revolver takes a turn and defeats Blood Shepherd. The whole reason and motivation for the duel was Revolver trying to get Blood Shepherd to join the Knights of Hanoi to recruit him so that he could fight against the Ignis, which was the mutual enemy at the time. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's a classic phrase that I believe Revolver and Spectre both used throughout VRAINS. Blood Shepherd does end up dueling for the Knights of Hanoi, sort of. He does go up against Lightning, but he gets defeated and turns to Data very quickly after this duel. Blood Shepherd's duels were never really that memorable for me. I felt like his character and his backstory was way more interesting than his actual duels were, and so Revolver versus Blood Shepherd, it's very short, it's not very memorable, and it comes in at number 10 for me on this list. Number 9, Revolver vs. Playmaker Round 1, Episodes 9 and 10. Revolver and Playmaker technically dueled 4 times in the opening season, with the first 2 times they dueled every time they met up being a no result. Revolver and Playmaker duel in a speed duel when they first meet very early on in the show, and while the duel itself isn't bad, what really hampers this duel on this list is how horrible the link summoning animations were early on in VRAINS. I know a lot of us joke around about how long those summonings take, but man oh man, it was the first time I've rewatched any of the early duels in probably about a year, and I was reminded at just how long and drawn out every single link summon took. I mean, you have Playmaker flying into the circuit to make a Link 1, flying back into the circuit to make a Link 2, flying back in to make a Link 3. I mean, it's just, the Link summonings literally take sometimes 2 minutes just to get to the final move, which is maybe a decode talker, and that to me really does affect the overall quality of this duel. I did love the introduction to Revolver's character. This was his debut duel. I loved the backstory and the motivation for wanting to destroy Link VRAINS. Seeing Revolver go into the Data Storm was really cool, and this duel ends in a draw as both duelists' life points reach 0 at the same time to set up the Master Duel that the two of these would have, which I believe was just much better than this speed duel. And so Revolver's first encounter with Playmaker comes in 9th on this list. Number 8, Revolver vs. Ghost Girl, episodes 30 and 31. So this was another pretty okay duel. I didn't think there was anything too spectacular about this, and even though this duel was quote-unquote 2 episodes, there was really just a small portion of this duel in episode 30 that saw Ghost Girl take her first turn, and then the entirety of the remainder of the duel was in episode 31. It was also pretty quick. Both duelists only had 2 turns. I did think that Ghost Girl put up a good fight against Revolver, even though it seems Revolver was in control the entire time. Ghost Girl even saying he had her in the palm of his hands the entire time, as Revolver summons Topologic Trisbana, activates his effect to destroy all of the back row that Ghost Girl has, which deducts 1,500 life points. Trisbana attacks directly and gets the win. This duel, again, wasn't anything that I thought was too special, and in comparison to a lot of Revolver's other duels, it doesn't really withstand the test of time, I guess, but it was nice to see Revolver get his first win. I did like this more than the first 3 on the list, and so Revolver vs. Ghost Girl does come in the number 8 spot for me in this video. Number 7, Revolver vs. Playmaker Round 3, episodes 41 and 42. So I would say this is where the list kind of widens in gap. Well, I feel like the first 4 are all kind of relatively close to each other. This duel, I think, is significantly better than the first 4 that we just went over that started off this list. This is the 3rd time the rival and protagonist square off, and it is once again very similar to the first 2 times they dueled, a situation where a speed duel occurs, followed immediately by a master duel. But this speed duel was so much better than the first speed duel that these two had. Number 1, the setting was amazing, where you were dueling around the Tower of Hanoi, and the entire world was just kind of falling apart inside the VRAINS. They were literally the last 2 duelists remaining in the virtual world, and you really did get that apocalyptic feeling. So the vibe to this duel was so much better, and while this duel was going on, you had Playmaker and Revolver both trying to get cards in the Data Storm, but legitimately couldn't because of just how strong the Data Storm was. That is, until Revolver got the help from his father with some really good dialogue between him and his dad. He ends up getting Topologic Gamble Dragon from the Data Storm, uses it, but then quickly receives word that his dad's heartbeat has stopped. And so Revolver, instead of continuing the duel, basically forces a draw very similar to the first time they dueled, which was kind of a cool throwback to that first duel, which was about 30 episodes ago. And I just thought the action, the dynamic, and the chemistry, the atmosphere, it was all so much better than the first speed duel these 2 characters had. And so in my opinion, this kicks off really the section of Revolver's very good duels, and Revolver vs. Playmaker Round 3 comes in 7th on this list. Number 6, Revolver vs. Go, episodes 39 and 40. So I always feel when I'm doing the rankings of a character's duels, there's always one duel that maybe I have higher than most people would, or one duel that I feel is a little underrated and overlooked, and sometimes a duel that is maybe overrated, but a duel that I think is underrated and that a lot of people sleep on when looking back at Revolver's duels is Revolver vs. Go. Some people might think I have it a little too high, having it ranked above both of the Revolver Playmaker speed duels, but I actually loved this duel. It's a master duel, and it's the final duel before the final confrontation of the entire season, which is, of course, the Revolver versus Playmaker duels. And I thought this was a great setup for the Revolver versus Playmaker duels because it's a character in Go that pushes Revolver to the edge. I mean, Go looks like he's going to have the win as 39 is ending, and Revolver uses Mirror Force. This was the episode where Revolver debuted Mirror Force, and we realized how lethal of a trap Mirror Force is because Link monsters cannot be in defense position, and so they are literally vulnerable and sitting ducks to a card that destroys every single attack position monster. But what I loved is even after Revolver used Mirror Force, Go still hung on. I remember after Go got Mirror Forced, I was convinced that the duel was going to end very shortly in 40, but it didn't. Go was able to survive Revolver's onslaught. He even took another turn, getting Giant Ogre's attack to 5,000. 2,000 and whittling away at Revolver, bringing his life points down from 4,000 to 900. And it really seemed like Go had a lot of momentum, but unfortunately, Revolver is able to finish him off the turn after through Boral Sword's effect. And just from an overall dueling perspective, this is a duel that I think a lot of people overlook. It's really good, it's really sound, it's really clean with the combos, and Revolver versus Go does come in number 6 for me on this list. Number 5, Revolver versus Playmaker Round 2, episodes 10 through 12. So the first of 2 master duels between Revolver and Playmaker just cracks the top 5 list for Revolver-specific duels. This duel takes place right after the Speed duel that came in 9th on this list, and I just loved the master duels. I liked master duels in general more than Speed duels, but in the case of Revolver versus Playmaker, I thought their 2 master duels were definitely stronger than their 2 Speed duels, and this was a really memorable duel for the reason that Playmaker finally summons Firewall Dragon. We knew Firewall Dragon was Playmaker's quote-unquote ace card since the show began. We were all wondering when it was going to be used, and I always remember this duel because we finally see Firewall Dragon used. He duels without Eye for a portion of the duel, but Eye eventually does come back to his side. Another highlight from this duel was when Revolver uses his anti-glare, where he makes his mask dark due to his dragon's attack. That was just something that I always loved, and that was the first time we saw him actually use his visor and his mask for like a legitimate purpose rather than just aesthetics. And I really just liked this duel a lot. Playmaker ends up getting the victory, and the animation when Revolver gets defeated is great, and it concludes a really, really good first encounter between Protag and Rival, and this duel just cracks my top 5. Number 4, Revolver vs. Windy, episodes 69 and 70. This duel started off perfectly, thanks to Revolver having an epic return scene right before this duel took place. Revolver had been out of the spotlight for really the entirety of Season 2, for over 20 episodes, and after a long time without his influence on the show, he finally returns and squares off against the Wind Ignis in his new gear. The dialogue between these two is great. At one point, Windy calls Revolver a failure in his own father's eyes since he wasn't chosen for the experiment. The duel got personal real quick. Another moment that is very memorable to me is when Revolver seems to be pushed into a corner and all the other Knights of Hanoi just walk into the room and show their support and trust in Revolver. It was a great moment that showed that bonds can be incredibly strong even within factions that aren't necessarily heroic. We as fans also witness a shock moment thanks to Revolver performing the first synchro summon in the show. It was an epic moment, and it led to Revolver defeating Windy, which greatly mutilated Windy's form. Revolver and Windy are 2 of the best trash talkers in the show, and this is the duel that truly kicked off the battle between Ignis and humans. It's also Revolver's 4th best duel in the show. Number 3, Revolver vs. Playmaker Round 4, episodes 43 through 46. This is our classic Protag versus Rival duel. These two faced off again 4 times in the first season, but they saved the best for last. But in this duel, the stakes were as high as you could imagine. A Playmaker win means the Cyberse and basically the digital and real world is safe. A Revolver win means the Tower of Hanoi EMP goes off, which would destroy society. Prior to this duel, Revolver and Playmaker's speed duel ended in a draw, which we just went over, thanks to the death of Revolver's father, Dr. Kogami. We finally see Revolver without his mask on. Fangirls went nuts, and the final duel of Season 1 began. This duel featured our first extra link, as Revolver seemingly completely corners and obliterates Playmaker. However, Playmaker has an insane protagonist-like turn at the end of this duel, and is able to somehow pull out the win despite being extra linked. The dialogue between these two was so fun to watch, as Revolver desperately tried to convince Playmaker he was evil. Despite Revolver being the reason, Playmaker was able to survive the lost incident. Playmaker also showed signs of development, maybe more in this duel than any other duel in the show, where he cracked a smile and showed that he was actually having fun during the duel. And it's really a shame that these two never duel again, but this duel remains one of my favorites and one of the best overall in VRAINS, and the 3rd best duel Revolver took part in. Number 2, Revolver vs. Lightning, episodes 96 through 98. So this is a duel that is not only one of Revolver's best, it's a top 3 duel in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS for me, and it is the duel between Revolver and the Light Ignis. This was essentially very similar to the duel Revolver had with the Wind Ignis, windy, but just better. I mean, it really was. It featured 2 of my favorite characters in the show, 2 of the best talkers, and the hype going into this duel was astronomical, and it really did live up to the hype. We were all wondering how this would lead to the obvious final between Bowman and Playmaker, but this is the duel that people remember more from the end of Season 2. The verbal jabs these 2 hit each other with was a joy to watch. Lightning even confirms that every single thing that has gone wrong, from Revolver's dad's death to the corruption of the Ignis, is his fault entirely, which was cool, but maybe a little over the top. Regardless, Revolver made Lightning tick like nobody else could before him, and the unpredictability this duel carried all the way till the end made this duel hard to look away from. Even the way Lightning wins speaks back to the old style of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where things didn't make logical sense from a card game standpoint, which I loved. Lightning ends up using part of Jin's data to convert it to 1 life point, making him the victor over Revolver. Revolver has a very human moment where he remembers himself as an adolescent during a much simpler time before calling I by his actual name instead of Dark Ignis. It was one of the more humanizing moments in the entire show. Even the moment Lightning has with Bowman is great, and the post-duel scenes really wrapped up what was a great overall duel. Revolver versus Lightning takes the runner-up spot as Revolver's best duel. Number 1, Revolver vs. Soulburner Round 2, episodes 115 to 116. You know I love when a character's best duel is their final duel because it means that they saved the best for last. Not only is Revolver vs. Soulburner the best Revolver duel that took place in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS, this is the best duel straight up in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS, and it's one of the best duels in the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. After what was a complete bust the first time these 2 dueled each other, again, if you even want to call it a duel, the actual duel these 2 had was one of the best duels we have ever seen. I think one of the things I liked most about this duel was that it wasn't a life or death duel like 90% of the duels in VRAINS were. This was easily the most in-depth and most relatable duel that we had during the show. Soulburner was angry at Revolver for what happened in regards to the Lost Incident, and so the 2 do what every character does in Yu-Gi-Oh! And decide to duel to display their feelings to one another. The exposition for both of these characters was incredible. We learned that Homura blames himself for the death of his parents since they died while searching for him. Revolver talks about the afterlife in such a profound way, even stating that the only actions he takes in the waking world are actions that he knows people waiting for him in heaven won't be ashamed of, and so he'll be able to face them with the utmost confidence and respect for himself. The philosophical exchanges between these 2 took this duel to a level that dialogue alone does not take many duels in Yu-Gi-Oh! We even get to see an appearance from Flame, who is able to convey the message that Revolver is preaching, a message that is correct, which is enough to convince Soulburner to take control of his actions and finally take control of his life. Soulburner then goes on to beat Revolver, which is an outcome that 90% of us were not expecting. A duel filled with emotionally powerful dialogue, a surprise guest appearance, and a shock ending. Sign me up for that any day of the week. This was one of the only duels that did not have an Ignis at stake or life or death at stake, but what it did have at stake was the growth and development of a human being, which is so much easier for many viewers to relate to. There are so many things that hold us back in life from becoming the best versions of ourselves, and this duel conveyed that message in a near perfect way. Revolver vs. Soulburner is the best Revolver duel in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS, it's the best duel in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS, and it's one of the best duels in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. And that wraps it up. All of Revolver's duels from Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS ranked. Let me know if you agree with my rankings. Let me know your top 3, top 5. Heck, if you want to rank all 11 of these duels, be my guest. I'm very excited to see your rankings down below. And if you are a patron of mine, you will be able to vote sometime this week on the next character that we will choose for this segment. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I appreciate you all so much. And a special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons, Horace Maye, Goosey Q, Panther J, Blue Maiden 28, and Jarrett Buller. and to my Diamond tier patrons, Jesse Wood and Latrell Smith. Thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon and who is a YouTube channel member. There are some really cool perks associated with being a patron of mine or being a YouTube channel member. I definitely encourage you to check them out. And to everyone that has supported me through those means, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I stream on Twitch, I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram. Links for all those will be down below. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day. Take care, guys.